but it's just been so frustrating for a lot of reasons, not just basketball.
I know what you're saying, but I'm happy here, so there's nothing to worry.
There is so much riding on this season for the Dallas Mavericks. A successful season is the difference between this team potentially looking significantly different next year and this team being able to compete with a franchise-altering talent for years to come. And I'm gonna admit, it's not necessarily looking the greatest, and I'll tell you why. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, every time PrizePicks has done this, it's practically been free money for us. For the opening weeks of the NFL season, we've had a lot of success on PrizePicks. I've been showing you guys my picks on Instagram, and I post my picks there for free consistently at TheFlightMike. And typically, you need to at least make 2 correct picks in order to make money. But in this case, PrizePicks is giving us a free Steph Curry square. Steph Curry only needs 1 point in order for his square to convert. So we just need to get 1 pick right at minimum to make money here. So if you're an NFL fan, I'm looking at Tyreek Hill scoring a touchdown versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you're an NBA fan, I'm looking at Michael Porter Jr. to grab more than 5.5 rebounds. Make sure you use my promo code microphone to get a $100 deposit match when you sign up at PrizePicks. This is easily my favorite promo of the year. We've had a lot of success with it in the past. I'm going to show you additional picks on my Instagram story. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? In the 2018 NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks made a franchise-altering trade, trading the draft rights to Trae Young to be able to select Luka Doncic, a player that Mark Cuban has said himself was the top prospect on their big board. Rightfully so, because so far it looks like Luka Doncic was the best player in the 2018 NBA draft. However, that came with some complications. Ever since drafting Luka Doncic, the Dallas Mavericks have done everything they possibly could to build a contender around his unique skill set, and that has been more challenging than you'd think. Quite literally, in the middle of his rookie season, they traded for Kristaps Porzingis, trading a player that at the time was perceived to be their franchise cornerstone in Dennis Smith Jr. Yes, I know it's funny, but that was actually the case back then. DeAndre Jordan, Wesley Matthews, and 2 future first-round picks to do so. Kristaps wouldn't be able to make his debut until the year after, but in the 2 seasons that Kristaps Porzingis was with the Dallas Mavericks, it became very clear that there were some holes in this Dallas Mavericks team. Porzingis was really good offensively in his role with the Dallas Mavericks, averaging more or less the same numbers that he did with the New York Knicks. But the problem with any Luka Doncic-led team wasn't necessarily holes in their offensive game. Rather, it was the fact that the Dallas Mavericks were a gigantic liability defensively. Kristaps Porzingis was exactly the player that the Dallas Mavericks thought that he would be. Statistically speaking, he was as good, if not better, than his time with the New York Knicks. As a matter of fact, if you look at his defensive statistics, his DBPM was higher than it was with the New York Knicks, at least in year 1. In his final year with the Mavericks, however, it dwindled to the -0.8s. Offensively, he was more efficient as ever if you look at his OBPM. But as a team, the Dallas Mavericks weren't experiencing success. He would get injured in his playoff debut versus the Los Angeles Clippers, would have an abysmal playoff performance in the 2021 playoffs. Needless to say, by the 2021 to 2022 season, the Mavericks saw all that they needed to see and decided to ship Porzingis to the Washington Wizards for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. Now, you'd think that if the Dallas Mavericks were able to improve their defense, they would find some more success, and believe it or not, they did. That very same season, the Dallas Mavericks were able to make it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, losing to the Golden State Warriors, who would eventually win the NBA championship. The key to their success here was the fact that they had their highest defensive rating since the Luka Doncic era had began. Their offense took a bit of a hit though, so they decided to run it back with the same exact core during the 2022 to 2023 season. And to begin the season, it seemed like everything was working out smoothly. By February 9th, 2023, the Dallas Mavericks were 30-26. This was good enough to be 4th place in the Western Conference. They were 1 game in the win column behind the Sacramento Kings, and they were ahead of the LA Clippers and Phoenix Suns. But for some reason, they decided, hey,
you know what? This defense first strategy isn't really working for us. Let's gut out our entire roster for Kyrie Irving.
And look, on one hand, I understand it's a gigantic puzzle to try to build around Luka Doncic, but at the same time, this ended up being a disaster for the Dallas Mavericks. Following this, the Mavericks would only win 8 out of their 20 games, and they just committed to Kyrie Irving for another 3 years on a 3-year, $126 million deal. Now look, I think it's really cheap to come out and say,
Kyrie Irving's the reason why the Mavericks suck.
I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I mean, in the Kyrie Irving trade, they gave up Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith, and that's without mentioning the 2029 first-round pick and 2 second-round picks that they have to give up in 2027 and 2029. Dorian Finney-Smith was one of their better defensive players. Kyrie Irving historically has never been known for his defense, and the Dallas Mavericks seem to have just been fine offensively. The problem wasn't the fact that Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic were bad together, because they had a plus 4.2 offensive rating together, which is good enough to be top 5 in the NBA. Rather, the issue is this team was a gigantic liability on defense. And this is where it gets a little scary for the Dallas Mavericks, because you keep on tinkering, and it's very well known at this point that the Dallas Mavericks fear that Luka Doncic may request a trade in 2024 amid extreme frustration, which I want to make something very, very clear right now. Luka Doncic is in the first year of a $215 million supermax contract, which, by the way, hasn't ever been done before following a rookie scale contract in NBA history. That's how special of a player Luka is. Back in March, Luka said this about the state of the Dallas Mavericks.
I think you can see it with me on the court. Sometimes I don't feel it's me. I'm just being out there. I used to have really fun, smiling on court, but it's just been so frustrating for a lot of reasons, not just basketball.
And the reason why this is so terrifying, and I know you guys might think I have a little bias here, but bear with me. A few weeks later, Luka Doncic would say, I don't think offense is the problem. I've always said this, it's our defensive end. I think anybody can score on us. Whoever it is, anybody can score on us. The one thing you have to admit is maybe the Mavericks are struggling to put a contender around Luka Doncic, but man, this team is bending to the will of all of Luka Doncic's demands. You want another star in Kyrie Irving? You got it. You think your defense is weak? You got it. They go into the offseason, trade for Grant Williams, who has had a career positive defensive box plus minus and has shot 40% over the past 2 seasons from 3. But that's not all they did. They went into the NBA draft with the 10th overall pick, which, if you remember, at the end of last season, the Dallas Mavericks were getting some heat for potentially tanking. They were able to turn that 10th overall pick into 2 prospects, Derek Lively II and Olivier Maxence Prosper. Huge emphasis on defense here. The hope here is to get some additional wing versatility added to a team that already had no problems offensively. So Luka's wishes were granted in an instant. But is this enough? Because the number one problem that the Dallas Mavericks face this year, in a season where they fear Luka Doncic is going to leave, which is insane considering that he has 5 years left on this supermax contract, is the fact that the West is insanely deep. I mean, man, you look at the Western Conference and all the top contenders made huge moves last year. The Phoenix Suns added Bradley Beal in addition to bolstering their bench. The Memphis Grizzlies got rid of Dylan Brooks, who some perceived to be a distraction, and added Marcus Smart. The Golden State Warriors traded for Chris Paul. The Denver Nuggets may have gotten mildly weaker by losing Bruce Brown, but their continuity and chemistry cannot be denied. The New Orleans Pelicans, when they're fully healthy, were a number 1 seed last year. The Los Angeles Lakers had tremendous chemistry following the trade deadline, and they seem to have only gotten stronger by adding pieces that fit into their roster seamlessly. The Los Angeles Clippers, when healthy, have always been a really good team. The problem is, would they be able to stay healthy? The Sacramento Kings were a top seed last year. The OKC Thunder may finally contend with a healthy Chet Holmgren and a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that is playing out of his mind. Could the Dallas Mavericks beat these teams in the Western Conference and even make it into the playoffs? Because if you can't make it into the play-in alone, then we're going to run into some problems. Then that's when Luka Doncic's trade demand may come into play. So let me know in the comment section down below. Did the Mavericks do enough in the offseason? Or can we expect Luka Doncic darring a different jersey next year? Or in a few years from now? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.